Son, your ego is writing checks your body can't cash. We're talking movies for this brand new episode of Totally 80s and 90s Recall. Hello and welcome. If you're new to the show, we are so excited that you found us. And for our returning listeners, it's great to have you back. Well, if you love all things 80s and 90s, from music and movies to television and pop culture, then this is the podcast for you. I am one of your hosts, David, joined as always by my good friend, Rob.
Guten Tag.
Guten Tag.
Yeah, as a shout out to Frau Cherry.
Milwaukee
High School.
Yeah, I had Frau Cherry.
Yeah,
so
2 years
of
of German.
I did not have her for German. I had her for, shockingly, English. So
I didn't know
apparently she went back and forth.
Yeah. 2 years of German.
She taught a senior English class to which she put on a record of Romeo and Juliet. Try listening to Romeo and Juliet on record for an hour in class. It's not great. So
yeah, I'm practically bilingual.
Yeah, but she did let us cut class and didn't really cost us too much when we were seniors. So I can't be too mad at the Frau for that one. But Guten Tag, that's a good one. So I think you've used all your English versions of hello, so we're going to branch out into the world. So being that I am the creative element of this show, I'm just kidding. I'm not. We're both creative. But I was thinking this week, because I like to think, and I thought about an idea for a future episode where we're going to get our listeners involved.
Oh, boy.
Yes.
Okay.
So what I want to do is...
And you have not revealed this to me.
I have not.
Uh-huh.
So this is... I just was thinking about this.
Ahead of time.
No discussion.
Okay.
It's just happening.
Okay.
So here's what I want for our listeners.
Okay.
I'm tasking you, those that are listening, we're going to do a top 20 songs of the 90s episode. Okay? But here's how it's going to work. We want you, the listeners, to send us a song that you think is a top song from the 90s.
Okay.
And the first 20 responses I get, that's the list. We'll put them in no particular order.
Okay.
And we'll just release them.
Okay.
And so, but we need 20 listeners to send us these ideas.
Okay.
So go to our email, go to our social media sites, and leave an idea for a song. And the first 20 songs that I get, those are the songs.
Okay.
If I get any repeats, we'll obviously cut those out. But I'm not going to pick and choose any of the songs. Just the first 20 we receive. Now, if we get 20 from our listeners, that episode will occur. If we don't get 20, then we'll just keep doing what we do. But I'd like to see if this can happen and see if our listeners want to chip in here and have some fun.
Oh, I like it.
And then what we'll do is we will react to our listeners' 20 choices.
Okay. No, I like it. No, that's fun.
And I can't be responsible for what I say. So pick good songs if you send them to us, right?
It's fair game.
It is fair game.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think it could be fun.
No, I think it's
so
good.
After this episode, again, go to our email, go to our social media, send us a song. You only get one song. If you send me a list of 4 songs, I'm just picking the first one. So be smart, listeners, and make a selection, and then we will put it together and have it on a future episode.
I love it. No, I love it. I like the idea of getting the fans involved. That's good.
Yeah, be good. Well, on this podcast, Rob and I will travel back to the 2 decades that shaped not only our lives, but influenced the world for generations that followed. Each episode, we will develop and discuss lists of selected topics, or perhaps identify a significant event, movie, or whatever we recall from growing up in the 80s and 90s, providing some awesome memories, fun, and nostalgia along the way. With all that, Rob, what topic will we be covering today?
Well, we are going to go, if I've done my math correct, we are going to go back 37 years ago to the year of 1986. And we're going to look at the top movies of 1986.
Our favorite movies of
Our
86.
favorites, yeah.
Yes.
Not necessarily the best.
They may not be the top movies, yes.
So I wanted to give you some stats here. So people may not realize that you're in the process of buying a home.
No one would know that.
No one would know
Yes,
that.
but now they do.
Now they do. So here's some stats that's very timely. So the average cost of a new home in 1986 was $89,000.
Yeah, I don't like it.
The average income was $22,400. The average monthly rent was $385. The average price of a new car was $9,255. A gallon of gas was 89 cents. You could buy a Tandy 600 portable computer for $1,500. Actually, $1,600. You could buy a Ford Mustang for $7,000, and you could get 10 acres plus a 3-bedroom home, fully modernized with all appliances and a large kitchen for $71,000.
You're just making all the listeners angry because everything there makes everything now look awful.
Yeah.
Is what it does.
So anyway.
So,
that's
great.
So, and we're going to look at the movies of 86 from that year.
The movies, our movies. Well, as you just alluded to, 86 was a long, long time ago. Like, we didn't even know each other yet, long time ago.
Oh, yeah, no.
So we were like 9 or 10 years old, and I do remember some things, but it definitely takes a lot of effort and a lot of work on my part to conjure up how I was thinking and feeling in 1986. So going through these movies, put myself back in that place was a challenge. I think I got through it, but it was definitely a challenge.
Same idea. I was 8 to 9. I would have been 8 or 9 years old, so it was a struggle for me to remember a lot of these movies. So
yeah, well, once you remember them, then you realize how awesome 86 maybe was.
You would have been proud of my pre-production. I did my homework on this.
I know
one.
you've.
I
didn't
skate on this one.
Yes, you've definitely been progressing in your pre-production work. Early in the podcast, early episodes, and fans can go hear it. You just kind of winged it, let's just see what happens.
I did.
And now you really buckle down. You study.
Yeah, I did.
As an educator, I feel like that should already be built into you. So now you're just using it.
I never said I was a great student.
Yes, but but you produce great students. So we'll say
There
that,
you go.
right? Well, that's not too bad. Well, let's jump into our dad's Ferrari and head into Chicago to have a great time revisiting our favorite movies of 1986. So, quick disclaimer, because we love disclaimers. The movies being presented, as we said, at least from my part, are not, and that's a capital N-O-T for you visual learners out there, the best movies of 1986. As a young child, these are just the movies I remember watching and are ranked by how I think I remember liking them at the time. And with all that being said, let's head somewhere out there. And Rob, give us your number 10.
All right, my number 10 is Short Circuit.
Johnny number 5.
Johnny number 5. This one has a 61% or 67% audience score. My biggest memory of this one was there's a line in the story. It says, "Hey, laser lips, your mama's a snowblower." It came in a very action-packed part of the movie.
Action-packed.
But what I remember most about that is I was a kid. When I was a kid, I had pretty thin skin.
Yeah.
We were at the playground playing around during the summer. A kid repeats this line to me.
Yeah.
And I take it personal. So I ride my bike all the way home, back to the babysitter, to tell the babysitter that somebody called my mom.
Was it possible
A
he was just
snowblower.
trying to talk to you about Short Circuit?
Well, I look, hindsight being 2020.
Maybe he
but-
thought that would be something that you two could have in common.
Yeah. Well, needless to say, my babysitter had no sympathy for my
I think
tattling.
most 80s babysitters had no sympathy.
Yeah.
Go walk it off.
Yeah.
Figure this thing out. Right?
But while researching a little 80s connection that you will appreciate, so Fisher Stevens, the guy that plays Ben, this movie did not age well. He was a very Caucasian gentleman. They brown skinned him, brown eyes. He played a Middle Eastern man from India. He was actually fired and replaced with Bronson Pinchot.
Balky Bartok.
Yep. But then they brought him back to do it. But yeah, everything I read said he absolutely regrets this role.
Well,
and
anytime
for a lot of
you
reasons.
go coloring yourself, you're probably going to look back on those most of the time and not be too happy. Now, isn't the Gutenberg in that movie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ali Sheedy, Stephen.
So, I'll watch any movie.
Astoria was filmed in Astoria.
Yeah. I'll watch any movie with the Goots.
Yeah.
So Gutenberg was an 80s powerhouse, so I will always watch.
Ali Sheedy played an animal-loving pacifist, is what the description says. So anyway, my number 10 is Short Circuit.
Well, Johnny 5.
And I already mentioned the song in a previous episode.
You did.
El DeBarge.
Well, if you love that movie, you should check out Short Circuit too, because I think he goes to New York.
And actually,
And
everything I
gets
read, people said that was actually better than the first. So
It's not,
I
but
don't know.
you can make that decision for yourself. So, well, my number 10 is a heartwarming tale of a young boy who loves locusts. It is the teen sensation Lucas. Released 28 March
good.
86, Rotten Tomatoes 73%, audience 70%. This has Corey Haim, Charlie Sheen, Winona Ryder, and Courtney Thorne Smith. This is a classic 80s teen movie. Lucas is a nerd by 80s standards
Mm-hmm.
because he's wearing glasses. He gets bullied. But through all the bullying, somehow Charlie Sheen gets hepatitis. So Lucas brings in food in his homework all the time, so they become friends. Charlie Sheen's a big football player and all that, so he kind of protects Lucas after that. But the big part of this movie that's exciting is Lucas is trying to impress the girl, his friend, that Charlie Sheen is now dating. And it's the girl from Goonies, so she's kind of always causing problems in these movies she's in. But Lucas joins the football team. Well, he doesn't join the football team.
Oh, yeah, the girl, the lead from Goonies. Okay.
Goonies, yeah. He doesn't join the football team. He shows up in uniform. They tell him he can't play, goes on the field anyway. And then they actually throw him the ball, which makes no sense. And while the ball's in mid-flight, he pulls his helmet off because that seems right, and then almost dies. They hit him, and he almost dies. Goes to the hospital, gets out of the hospital, doesn't die, comes back, and the two bullies are waiting by his locker.
Oh.
And when he opens his locker, a Letterman jacket inside. Oh. And then what happens? 80 slow clap. Whole hallway.
The slow clap.
For the slow clap. Yeah. So Entertainment Weekly named this number 17 of 50 best high school movies, which sounds a little high to me, but they're experts, so I'll let them have that. Roger Ebert gave this 4 out of 4 stars. I've watched that. I don't know if it's 4 out of 4, but all right. And he put this in his top 10 films of 1986. There's 10 other better films than Lucas, and I liked Lucas at the time, but I've looked at all those films, and I don't know that this is a top 10.
No.
But it's nostalgic, and I remember watching it and thinking, because I was kind of a young, small kid with glasses, and I thought maybe I could die playing football when I get to high school. So thank you, Lucas, for that inspiration.
Yeah, no, that's one of those ones I would have had. I had to rewatch many movies. All of the movies on my list I rewatched. That would have been one I had to have.
No, I remember Lucas.
Don't remember it.
And he loves locusts.
I forgot the locust part.
Yeah, it's a big part of the movie. So
all right.
It's a key plot point.
It's a good pick. So we talked pre-show that you thought we'd have some overlap.
Yeah, I think so.
You were saying that you thought 3.
Over under 3.
Okay. All right. So my number 9, Iron Eagle.
Real quick.
Yes.
My number 9 is Pure Adrenaline, and is also called Iron Eagle.
What?
Oh yeah. How do you like that?
No, Pure Adrenaline.
Pure Adrenaline.
It had a different name.
No, it's Iron Eagle.
Yeah.
The movie's Pure Adrenaline.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes.
That's how it makes you feel.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
No. So let's see. In my notes, killer soundtrack. There's a lot of 80s stereotypes in this one.
Yeah.
You got the prom dance scene. There's a prom dance scene. 80s characters. There's a motorcycle. Cassette. He's got the cassette thing on his thigh. You got the Jane, who is now in The Office. But you had Larry B. Scott, who's the gay guy from The Nerds. Jerry Levine, who's Teen Wolf's buddy, Styles. He's in it. It has a 20% tomato meter, 57% audience score. Gosh, what else? The other thing that I was amazed when I had to rewatch it, was the quick turnaround of how quickly he became an F-16 fighter pilot.
No, there's no quick turnaround. It's insane.
There was like a week.
Yeah,
he trained for a week and he was in the air,
and then all of a sudden he's fighting Libyans. Is what happened.
Yeah, they went across the Atlantic. Yeah.
So some things about this movie, real quick. I remember when I was a kid, I was excited for this movie because it's a fighter plane movie. But this came out the same year as Top Gun, and it's supposed to be like Top Gun, but it's just way worse, right? This is like a made-for-TV movie if you really watch it now. Louis Gossett Jr. is your main actor.
Yep. He was actually the best part of it.
Here's the deal.
Chappie.
Yeah, here's the deal. So this kid, whose dad got shot down over Libya, he doesn't get into the Air Force Academy. He's throwing a big fit about it, is basically what's happening, because his whole life he wants to be a pilot. And then, just so you know, and our listeners know, of course, I am a retired veteran of the United States Air Force. Yeah. And this movie portrays a scenario where 5 or 6 16-year-olds steal 2 fully loaded F-16 aircraft off of an Air Force base. They get highly classified intelligence. They dupe the air traffic controllers to allow them to take off. And they do it in the dumbest ways. They're like spilling coffee on people, and they're like hugging someone so someone else can grab some. It makes the Air Force look like the dumbest people on earth. Yeah. And then they take these 2 planes, go fight, save the dad, come back. And when they go to Ramstein in Germany, they meet a tribunal where they're supposed to get in trouble. Do they get in trouble?
Nope.
No. Louis Gossett Jr. gets promoted to a general, and they put the kid into the Air Force Academy. So the message there is steal planes.
Yeah.
But here's a little thing.
And Louis Gossett, he got shot. Chappie gets shot down.
Yeah.
And
they get him back.
And he's back.
Easily.
By the end of the show, he's back.
Yeah, no problems. Because he vouches for him. That's how he gets in the academy. And little fun fact I found out, the United States Air Force was initially supposed to give aircraft for this movie, but they didn't like the premise that it made the Air Force look stupid.
Yes.
So these jets are all Israeli F-16s, and they had to film in Israel and stuff with some of the plane shots so they could use those planes.
I read the same thing. The other thing that I just missed my notes here, it said Larry B. Scott was also one of the first opponents to lose to Daniel LaRusso in The Karate Kid. So there's all these 80s movies crossovers. So
Lamar.
Yeah. So
yeah. One more fun fact. The Twisted Sister song, We're Not Gonna Take It, is in the movie.
But not in the album.
Not on the soundtrack.
I actually created, I had to go find all the songs. I put it on my Amazon playlist.
Well, my over-under was 3, so we're at 1.
Okay.
And not only that, our number 9 was the exact same, Iron Eagle.
Okay.
But it was a great movie. So
all right.
that means now you get to go to number 8.
All right. My number 8 is The Boy Who Could Fly.
Oh, my goodness. So you looked at all the movies in 86, because I did too, and you came up with The Boy Who Could Fly?
Well, I had to pick the ones that I remembered, and I remember watching this one. Right. So, yeah. So it's Fred Savage. It's got a 63% tomato meter, but a 69% audience score. It's got the gal from Facts of Life that played Natalie. The daughter is the love interest in The Great Outdoors. Also a great movie. Hopefully that'll come up one day on an episode. He's all into paper airplanes. And the mom is the wife from Die Hard. So there's some 80s crossovers. But yeah, it's a great movie. It deals with my wife and I watched it together.
Yeah.
And we actually thought that it was a little bit in 86 would have been a little bit ahead of its time. They're talking about autism, which wasn't a thing that people are talking about, and suicide. So it had some weighty topics that weren't talked about.
So I saw that I remember seeing it back then. I don't know if it's exactly 86, but at some point it got rented. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to tell you, I might have made it through half of that movie. I did not think it was a good movie at that time. I will take your word that rewatching as an adult it might have a different effect. But when I was younger, I didn't want anything to do with The Boy That Could Fly. So,
well, for me, it falls apart when he really flies. I was hoping that it was going to be...
So he actually flies. It's not a title of the movie.
No. I was hoping it would be like an analogy for something. But no, by the end of the movie, he's actually flying. And so then for me, it kind of goes... But anyway, that's my number 8.
You enjoy that. Great. Well, we're not tied this time.
Okay.
My number 8 comes from friends of the show, Australia, and it is Crocodile Dundee.
No. I knew that was going to make it.
Released 26 September 86, obviously. Rotten Tomatoes 89%, audience 59%. So critics apparently liked it better than the audience. Paul Hogan, Linda Kozlowski. This is the highest grossing film all time in Australia. Highest grossing non-U.S. film at the U.S. box office ever, and second highest grossing film internationally in 1986. So plot's pretty simple. She goes to Australia to meet this Crocodile Dundee. They go on a walkabout. He teaches her about the outback, all the good stuff, and then she brings them to New York. And of course, hijinks ensue. He's out of place in New York, because he's never been there before. And there's a lot of funny situations. Probably my favorite situation is they're trying to mug him, and the guy goes, I've got a knife, and he pulls out that huge hunting Bowie knife. He goes, that's not a knife, that's a knife, right? So, and then they laugh. The mugger laughs with him or something. I don't know. It's a whole thing. But this is definitely a rental and definitely a movie I remember watching with my family. And it spawned 2 sequels that I've never seen. But
I did. I guess I didn't realize there were sequels.
I didn't realize there were 2. I knew there was 1, but I didn't know there was 2 sequels. But
doesn't he go? He comes to the U.S. like New York.
That's
what
I said. He comes to New York. He's out of water. That's where that's not a knife comes from.
Oh, so
they're trying to mug him.
That's in the first one.
Like on the subway.
That's right.
And then he's because she's like, he's got a knife, and he's like, that's not a knife. And then he pulls that thing out, and it's ridiculously big. So Crocodile Dundee.
That's good.
Remember that distinctly watching it with my parents and my dad laughing at it. So
that's a good one. I looked at it, but I had other picks that
like The Boy Who Could Fly.
The Boy Who Could Fly, and number 7 that's coming up right now. My number 7 is Flight of the Navigator.
Flight of the Navigator. Yeah.
You know this.
I remember that one.
Yeah. Here's what I thought was interesting when I was looking at the notes. When I looked it up on Rotten Tomatoes, it says this 1978 Disney adventure. That's got to be a typo. But everything else says it was 86. So I don't know. But anyway, some things about this movie. They're talking about a reboot in 2017. They were talking about doing a reboot. Paul Rubens, Pee Wee Herman, plays the voice of Max the robot.
Does he sound like Pee Wee Herman?
There's times
I
where
haven't
you
seen that movie in a
yeah.
while. Is it going?
Yeah. Yeah, there's times where you
They're
hear it.
flying
You
around?
totally hear it, and the rest of the time it doesn't. But there's several times. Sarah Jessica Parker makes an early appearance in movies. It's got an 84% tomato meter rating and a 75% audience score. So it's fairly popular. But the thing that I thought was cool is that it's one of the first movies to use CGI effects, and the soundtrack was all electronic. It was completely done electronic. So, but yeah, and that's when I remember watching.
Did you rewatch it?
I rewatched all the movies on my list.
Gotcha.
I rewatched them. Yeah.
remember watching that movie, and I remember thinking that silver plane or whatever the UFO he's in is cool. But I just remember thinking the movie had no action. It was kind of like, I don't know, it was just him learning how to fly that thing around.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's fine. I mean,
Trying to get back home. Yeah.
it was supposed to be a kid's movie.
It's got a little
age.
time travel element to it.
Yeah.
He goes back and it's like alternate he hadn't aged.
Yeah.
But everybody else had.
I definitely remember that movie. I think I've only seen it like once.
Yeah.
It wasn't one I went back to a lot. So, but good choice. Not The Boy Who Could Fly, but
Nope.
solid. All right. So this is where we're going to take a huge left into what did he just say, Vil? So remembering my age in 86, because I was 10, my number 7 is Howard the Duck.
No.
There's a lot of problems with this movie, so we're going to talk about some of the problems of this movie, but this just kind of tells you, or this gives you an idea of what this movie was about. This was given a Razzie for worst song in a movie. Yeah, so this was
from the movie.
This is the theme song.
Who sings it?
Nobody
we don't
would
know. It's nobody. Okay.
No. So it's not good. Like I said, it won a Razzie for worst song. So released one August 86, and the Rotten Tomatoes is really bad here. Really bad. 14%.
Oh.
Audience 38%. So this is definitely rotten to the core. It stars Leah Thompson, Tim Robbins. Tim Robbins really young. And Howard was voiced by Chip Zien. I have no idea who that is. This was intended to be an animated film, but through contractual obligations with the studio, it became a live-action film, which was a terrible plan.
Okay.
This was produced by George Lucas. And yes, Star Wars, George Lucas. This was the first Marvel comic made into a movie since 1944.
I was going to say, it was a comic.
Yeah. Since 1944. First Marvel movie made into a Marvel comic made into a movie.
Yes.
There were TV shows, but this was the first theatrical release. This movie is objectively bad. Okay. But I was excited to see when I was 10. I remember the previews. I'm like, cool, a duck. But the sex scene between Leah Thompson and Howard was really confusing to watch at that age. And
I remember she pulls out a condom, and I remember watching that as going, what is that?
It's not something you forget quickly. I'm like, why is the Back to the Future mom having sex with a duck? It won Razzies for Worst Picture, Worst Screenplay, Worst Actress, and Worst Original Song, as we just heard, the Howard the Duck song. So this is probably one of the biggest bombs of all time. Everybody makes fun of, but at that age, at that time, I remember going to the video store and being excited to grab that movie and watch it. And then it was kind of shattered after that because it's really, really stupid.
So, yeah, other than the sex scene with the duck, the other thing that I remember is in one of the recent Avengers movies, there's an Easter egg.
Yeah, they're bringing Howard back, but in a different
he's in
style.
the background. He's in one of the cages in the collector's museum. He's in the background.
Got his little leisure suit on.
Yeah,
it's awful. I dare anyone just go see if you can make it through it. Put it on and watch it.
What were the Rotten Tomato numbers on that again?
14% from critics.
Audience
36% or 39% from the audience. So it's rotten.
So even the audience couldn't pull that back.
Nobody likes it.
Okay.
It's not even a bad B movie to look back on from these. It's just bad. But go watch it and remember how bad it is.
I was worried that I was going to have the worst one on here, like the worst rated one, but
it'll be hard to beat that.
You're a tick above. So
it'll be hard to beat that.
All right, so that's a good one. Number 6 for me. We're getting into some. Okay, so it's Cobra, starring Sylvester Stallone.
I love Cobra.
Okay,
Real quick before you get too far, by hearing Cobra, Laurel and Aubrey will tell you 100 times.
Yes.
The bad guy in that, Brian Thompson.
Yeah.
He went to college with their parents.
Yes. It's in my notes. I put Ellensburg connection. He's the night slasher.
Yeah. He is.
So he plays Marion Cobretti. He's a part of this crack squad of policemen. They had a name. It's called it's in my notes. I'll find it. But he finds himself in a murder investigation. He meets Bridget Nielsen, who they met on this movie. They become married. Great quotes. So he says, "You're the disease and I'm the cure."
Perfect.
He says, "This is where the law ends and I begin."
You gotta
Sucker.
say it. This is where the law ends and I begin. You gotta say it like Stallone.
You have the right to remain
there
silent.
You go. That's how it is.
We're the and then he's having with Brian Thompson, the night slasher. He's having this dialogue, and the night slasher says, "We're the future," and he says, "Your history," and then he shoots him. Yeah,
perfect.
Yeah. He was nominated for this movie. Was nominated for 6 Razzies.
Of course.
Worst picture, worst actor, worst actress, worst supporting actor, and worst new star.
It lost a lot of those categories though too. Howard the Duck.
Probably. They're talking about a series. But the thing I really remember was the car. Like I was 9 or 10, 8 or 9 when this. I should not have watched this movie. Oh, it was going to be the first time it came out. It had an X rating, and but they had to dial it back.
There's a lot going on in that movie.
Zombie Squad. Yeah, he was the leader of the elite division known as the Zombie Squad. But his 1950 Mercury that he drove around, it was super cool. And I remember that when my dad used to bristle like when we'd see a movie and a cool car would get crushed or banged, and this was one of those movies I remember. He rolls it and it's a sweet car and you just go, oh, you felt bad for him. So anyway.
I saw Cobra like years later on HBO because I wasn't allowed to watch that when it first came out. So good for you sneaking into the theaters and seeing that movie.
No, I saw it at the babysitter. Julie. Yeah, Julie's.
Your
the
babysitter sounds like a jewel,
awesome.
by the way.
A lot of my upbringing. But it has an 18% tomato meter, critics, 43% audience score. So not great.
Yeah,
it's an awful movie. I watched it, and
it's rough. Yeah,
it's not good.
It's not good. Well, my number 6, I went with a sequel that I could not have been more excited to see, and that is The Karate Kid Part 2. Yeah. Rotten Tomatoes 44%, audience 51%, so not great. Still rotten. To begin with, we already know this movie's soundtrack is amazing because of the theme song that's been mentioned on a previous episode by Peter Cetera, "Glory of Love." I mean, I could love the sequel just for that there. But the movie is not quite as good as the original. It picks up right at the end of the first one.
Yeah, that's what I like about it.
Yeah.
Exactly where it ends.
In the parking lot. Yep. Allie now dumps Danny, which she probably should have dumped him in the first place. He wasn't that great to begin with. But we'll have that on the Karate Kid episode. I'll tell you how he's actually the bad guy, but that's okay. Dumped him, and then his mom moved to Fresno. So instead of moving with his mom, he just lives with Mr. Miyagi. So great, strong family bond we have going there. And then, of course, they go to Okinawa, right? In Okinawa, he meets a girl, fights a Japanese guy that hates him for some reason, battles a typhoon, and Miyagi saves him again. Then he wins in the end. So it sums it up. It's kind of the first one, but in Japan. A couple little twists and turns. What I did like was the Japanese guy, Chosen. He's the bad guy trying to beat Danny up the whole time. He didn't fall for that crane move, just like Johnny Lawrence shouldn't have fallen for that crane move. So you see that foot in the air, just push that dude down, and that's what he did. So that didn't work on him at all. So, but by the way, if you have not seen this movie in a long time, or if you've never seen it at all, just pull up the Glory of Love video for Peter Cetera, and you'll basically
all the highlights.
You'll watch the movie right there. Yeah. So in 4 minutes, you can see everything that happened. He'll cut ice.
Yes.
He'll do his little back and forth. What's that little toy?
I don't know. It's a little drum thing.
But the whole place does it, and that's how he wins. And so The Karate Kid Part 2, as my excitement I told you about at the beginning of this, I remember after seeing it going, not as good as the first one. And I will stand by that. But, of course, Peter Cetera gives it a couple ticks up.
That's good. Yeah, I looked at it again because I have movies like my number 5, which is Maximum Overdrive.
Wow, that's another one I wasn't allowed to see. You got to see so many
I remember
inappropriate 9-year-old movies.
I know, and I think again this is at the babysitter, which doesn't say a lot about my babysitter.
Go
she was a great lady. I'm
going to go real quick here. I've never seen Maximum Overdrive.
And
I've seen a lot of movies.
Really don't need to.
And I have not seen that
Nope,
movie.
it's not worth your time. It has a 15% critics rating and only a 50% audience. So it just beat Howard the Duck. But it was Stephen King's only directorial effort. After that, he said never. It kind of cured of him. He wasn't ever going to do it again. The best part of this movie is the soundtrack. It's AC/DC. Who Made Who? So
are we having another event here where you've picked a movie based on a soundtrack?
No.
Okay.
No, that's a good part of it. But but it was also nominated for 2 Golden Raspberry Awards, including Worst Director and Worst Actor.
So just real quick,
Yeah.
we're halfway through our list, and you and I have both selected 3 movies now that are the leading Razzie.
Yeah.
We were not watching good movies as kids.
No, and I think I have some more coming up that were. No, I think I'm good now. After this, they're pretty decent. But so Maximum Overdrive. Stephen King wrote it, but it's after a comet causes a radiation storm on Earth, machines come to life and turn against their makers. Holed up in a North Carolina truck stop, a group of survivors must fend for themselves against a mass of homicidal trucks. A diner cook, Bill Robinson, Emilio Estevez, emerges as the unlikely leader of the pack, attempting to find an escape plan for himself and the survivors, who include his boss, Bubba Hendershot,
what I have about
and a
these
newlywed
things,
couple.
I've always I tell my wife this all the time, I would have loved to have been in the room, just a fly on the wall, when the people who wrote that script came to the studio. So you got these executives, and they read them that. And the studio's like, yeah,
I have to have it.
Greenlit, go.
Yeah.
Here's $13 million. Make a movie. So what? Let us get this straight. They're gonna get attacked by trucks. Yeah. Perfect. Let's go. Let's do that. That sounds great. I mean, of all the movies that come in every year, it has to be just because Stephen King's name was attached to it.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, Stephen King? Well, what's it about? It's about a truck chasing people. Well, let's do it. Yeah. Let's make it happen.
One of my favorite parts of the movie, they're at the truck stop. There's this Bible salesman. He's standing in the parking lot of the truck stop. A truck turns on, gets into gear, starts heading towards him, and the guy never moves. He never moves. It's as if the truck just came out of nowhere. It's like that scene in Austin Powers where the guy's going to get rolled over by the steamroller.
I feel like it's not that hard to get away from a murderous truck.
No, and it took forever for it to get up to speed, and then he gets hit.
Well,
but yeah,
maybe he was under a trance or something.
I don't know. So Maximum Overdrive.
Maybe the trucks hypnotize you prior to running you down.
Yeah, it's and I paid $3.99.
Oh my goodness!
On Amazon to watch that.
You're not getting that back.
Nope.
That's it. That's over. Nope. That was a half a Happy Meal you just flushed down the toilet.
Yep.
All right. Well, my number 5 is a musical, and even at 10 years old, I liked musicals, or I liked this one at least. And it is Little Shop of Horrors.
Oh.
Released December 1986. Rotten Tomatoes 90%. Audience 79%. Rick Moranis, Steve Martin, Bill Murray, Christopher Guest. So Rick Moranis plays Seymour. He works in a flower shop. He's very poor in New York City. He finds an alien plant and cuts his finger, and then the plant likes drinking the blood. So for years, he's cutting his fingers and feeding this plant blood because it feeds off the blood. Well, it starts to get too big, and it doesn't want just his little finger, and it's not enough. And he can't get blood out of his fingers anymore. So it wants him to kill people. And so Seymour starts killing and chopping up what we hope are bad people and feeding it to the plant. And he's got the great line that everybody knows, the plant, feed me, Seymour, so and there's a whole song about that. I remember when I was a kid, Steve Martin, I'm getting him and Bill Murray mixed up. Steve Martin, he's a dentist, and I thought he was funny when I was a kid, and he's still funny. He sings that song, You'll Be a Dentist and all that, but he's a bad dentist, as in he likes to inflict pain on his patients. But as a kid, I didn't realize he's vicious and savagely beating his girlfriend. Like, she's got broken arms, she's got black eyes. Like, every night he's just tearing into her. So as an adult, that's not as funny as it was when I was a kid, the dentist parts. But Bill Murray plays a patient, real small part, goes to the dentist, and he likes the pain. So he has him drill on him with no Novocaine. Steve Martin pull teeth out with no anesthetic, nothing. And while he's doing it, he's like grabbing him and screaming in joy. And like, so Bill Murray turns out to be the funniest part of the movie. But the Steve Martin part didn't age as well as I had hoped. But great songs. You'll Be a Dentist, as I said. Suddenly Seymour, kind of a slow one. No. And then, of course, Feed Me, which is the plant. So, and in the end, he gets the girl, does Rick Moranis, underrated actor of the 80s. He gets the girl, They get a white picket fence house out in the suburbs, and in the garden was a little baby alien plant.
Oh.
So it's coming back. But
Yeah,
Little Shop of Horrors.
Yeah, I don't remember that one. I that was one that it was on my list to rewatch, and I never got to it. So I'm going to take your word for it.
It's a musical. It's good.
Yeah. Let's see here. What are we on? My number 4 is Aliens.
Another completely
Yes,
inappropriate movie for an
I
8-year-old.
know, but I remember. I know I watched it. But this takes place 57 years after the first one. They've been floating through space, and Sigourney Weaver's character is found with one other survivor, a young girl, and then chaos ensues. And but this is James Cameron's he directed this one. You had Bill Paxton. You had the guy that played. His character was Hicks, but he played the guy from the first Terminator movie. A lot of James Cameron crossover actors in this one.
Yeah,
but it's considered among the greatest films of the 80s.
it's good.
Among the best science fiction action and sequel films ever made. So it's in a lot of people's top 100 lists of all time. It's received 2 awards it got the 1987 Academy Awards for Best Sound, Best Visual Effects. Let's see, 98% critics, 94% audience on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
Another interesting crossover from an early one is the gal that played the character Vasquez. She's a toughy little Hispanic girl, one of the Marines. She also, her real name was Jeanette Goldstein, and she also did Brownface. And so again,
it
was a
theme in 1986.
very similar for.
How did that happen in 86?
I don't know.
Who knows?
I don't know. But I
So
thought that
that's
was
a
interesting.
great movie.
Yeah, it's an awesome movie.
I just didn't see it till like 3 years later because, again, that was not a movie I was allowed to see at 9 and 10 years old.
Yes.
But you just got to watch whatever you wanted. So
Apparently, I don't know.
my parents were so much stricter than yours. I don't know what happened there.
Well, I think as my dad
And I tried to sneak around and see movies. And
so I
stuff,
watched
but
it when my
never saw
dad
them.
watched it.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
good on your dad.
Yeah.
Well, my number 4 is it's an all-timer, easy to put on the list, and I remember watching it back in 86. It is Hoosiers. Released 14 November 86, Rotten Tomatoes 91%, audience 88%. Gene Hackman, Barbara Hershey, Dennis Hopper. Gene Hackman was nominated for Best Actor, and the movie was selected for preservation in the United States Film Registry by the Library of Congress as culturally historical. So this is a classic movie. So for anyone who hasn't seen Hoosiers, most people have probably seen it by now. I'm going to spoil it, so go out of the room if you haven't watched it in a long time. He takes over a small town team. They have like 6 players on the whole team. And of course, his style and discipline gets them all the way to the finals, right? Even though they're this small little team. And it's based on a true story. So they get to the Indiana State Finals. But my favorite, and it's a feel-good, and there's some things along the way you deal with some alcoholism, some other things. But just a great movie. My favorite part, though, and it'll always be my favorite part, is in the championship game. It's right at the end. So Jimmy's the best player. Like, this guy's the dead shot. He makes every shot, everything. And so Gene Hackman, they get the ball at the end. They have a chance to win the game. Gene Hackman runs a timeout, and he says, hey, we're going to run this picket fence play. Jimmy's going to be the decoy. Such and such, you're going to end up with the ball. We're going to get this easy layup, blah, blah, blah. He says all this, and the whole team just stands there, stares at him. They, like, look around. They do all this. Nobody likes this plan. And Jimmy's got his hands on his knees, just looks at the coach and goes, I'll make it. That's all he says. He says, I'll make it. And so he goes, all right, new plan, get Jimmy the ball. And so they give it to Jimmy. He hits the game-winning shot, nothing but net. But just his subtle confidence to go, I'll make it.
I'll make it.
That's all he said. So that's my favorite part of the movie. It's
Great
classic.
movie.
Great movie.
Great movie. Yep. I was just talking to my dad about this movie the other day, and he said he watches it anytime it's on. So
It's really good.
It's one of our favorites. So
Yeah.
My number 3,
Number 3.
which it's going to be higher on other people's lists, and I'd be shocked if it's not on yours, is Ferris Bueller's Day Off. So this is my number 3. Hughes wrote this screenplay in less than a week, which I thought was crazy.
So I've seen a lot of things where Hughes does this all the time. He wrote Weird Science in like a weekend.
Wow.
So,
But rewatched it.
Great film.
I just like it. I think it's a really good movie. It probably could have been my number 1.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see what number 2 and number 1 are.
It was the 10th highest grossing movie of 86. He was nominated for a Golden Globe, or Broderick was. 81% critics, 92% audience. My favorite line, though, is because we've talked a little bit about some theories out there.
Well, let's not go
no.
deep on Ferris because here's the deal.
Yeah.
We're going to do a Ferris episode where we do nothing but this movie.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's save most
I won't
of
go
that for
super
then.
deep. So, but my favorite line is Ferris can do anything. I can't do anything, and that was Cameron. And I just thought, man, there's some unpacking to
I
do
know.
there.
You always
So,
find the deep
yeah,
meanings
yeah.
in things.
So my
There's
number 3 was
so many great lines in that, and of course you go for the one that just
Yes.
really
No, I
strikes
thought-
that deep meaning.
I thought it was really good.
Yeah.
So,
What's that word you like?
heady.
Heady. There it is.
But my wife and I were talking about it. I was trying to look at think of the word. It is I'm losing it. But yeah, there's another word for heady, and it isn't
Smart?
good. It isn't. No, it's
Okay.
not good.
Intelligent?
Pretentious.
Okay.
There's a fine line. I got to be careful that I don't come across
Yeah,
as
you don't wanna
being
be
pretentious.
pretentious.
I don't want to be heady and then go, oh, look at him.
One of
He's-
our listeners are like, he thinks he's better than people.
I think if I'm not careful, then people will go, look at he's going with the heady. Just pick the fun one.
They'll pick the fun one.
Anyway.
Well, my number 3 is awesome. And I remember watching this over and over as a kid, and I've still watched it now. Big Trouble in Little China. Released 2 July 1986. Rotten Tomatoes 74%. Audience 82%. Kurt Russell, Kim Cattrall are the stars. This was a commercial failure. Bombed at the box office. I think it made like $1 million more than it actually cost to do it. But it gained huge
gonna say,
following in the home video department. It
cult
became like a cult classic type of movie. Talk about the plot a little. Jack Burton, that's Kurt Russell's character. So Jack, because he refers to himself in third person quite a bit. He's a truck driver, ends up in Chinatown. Lopan, who's the bad guy, he's this magical character. He's got to marry a green-eyed girl. So he finds this Asian green-eyed girl, and Kim Cattrall has green eyes, so he's got them both. He's got these 3 henchmen that are like basically Mortal Kombat characters before Mortal Kombat came out. There's literally a dude that's Raiden in that movie.
Yeah.
The electricity, the hat, the whole thing. There's a floating weird alien. There's a huge Bigfoot grabbing people from wherever. So it's just a great adventure movie. But the dialogue in this movie is fantastic. Like, especially Kurt Russell's dialogue. This is a quote. Jack Burton, who the character, this quote is fantastic. Just remember what old Jack Burton does when the earth quakes and the poison arrows fall from the sky and the pillars of heaven shake. Yeah, Jack Burton just looks that big old storm right square in the eye and he says, "Give me your best shot, pal. I can take it." So that is
grade A writing.
You know what? Shakespeare, eat your heart out.
That's
right?
right.
I mean, you can't get
That's
better than
good
that.
stuff.
That is fantastic. The delivery's great.
Yeah.
The dialogue's great. It's just a great fantasy / action movie.
He's kind of a cleaned up version of Snake Plissken from Escape from New York.
He is. No eye patch.
Yeah, no eye patch.
He can
though.
see out of both
Yeah,
eyes.
I can see him saying it though.
Yeah, but great movie. If you haven't watched that in a long time, I highly recommend. Probably not as awesome as I remember, but still quality.
Oh, that's good. It was on my want to watch movies, and I couldn't do it.
Want to watch.
So we're at my number 2.
Number 2.
My number 2 is Stand By Me. Also a Stephen King story, originally written as a Stephen King. Overwhelming positive reviews. It got nominated for Academy Awards. It's considered one of the most influential movies of the 80s, as well as one of the greatest films of all time. I was not able to find a critic's rating for it, but it has a 100% audience score, so that was probably my researching. But what I like most about this was the storytelling, because I just think the way it's told, you get the narrator in the background, Richard Dreyfuss playing his character and reading the story and telling it. I have a soft spot for storytelling. My grandpa was a professional storyteller, and this feels like a story he would have told. So I like this movie a lot. It's one of my all-time favorites.
This is a lot of people's all-time favorites. This is like one of those movies of the 80s. Everybody's like, ooh, Stand By Me. So
had a killer cast. I mean,
this could have been an honorable mention for me because I did not see it for years, probably until like the 90s. And everybody's like, oh, you got to watch Stand By Me. And I got to tell you, I watched it, and it's good. Yeah. But I was never blown away by it. You know what I mean? But maybe it's just my age. Yeah. Stuff like that. But yeah, good one. Yeah. I mean, can't go wrong going like with Oscar quality movies.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So it's not Howard the Duck, but
no,
it is what it is. My number 2 is easy, and it's Top Gun, the better version of Iron Eagle. 12 May 86, Rotten Tomatoes 58%, audience 83%. This is an audience-driven movie. Tom Cruise, Kelly McGillis, Anthony Edwards, a young Meg Ryan, Tom Skerritt, yes, Tom Skerritt of Picket Fences, Val Kilmer, Rick Rossovich, who plays Slider, and my favorite actor name of the 80s. This had to be a stage name, but his name is Whip Hubley. Such a great name. They were like, hey, Bob, you need a name for the stage. I'm going to go with Whip Hubley. If that's his real name, I'm just going to be in shock, but that'd be great. So one of the most popular soundtracks to this day, obviously Danger Zone. Everybody knows everything.
Yep.
Everybody knows everything about this movie. I'm not going to cover it because we're going to do a Top Gun movie.
Okay.
So we're going to do a deep dive into this because it deserves way more time than I can give it here. But
Absolutely.
I can just tell you, I've known this movie forever. Laura won't watch it with me because I repeat every line. I know every line of every bit of dialogue. Yeah. I'll do it the whole time. It drives her nuts. I love this movie. I'll watch it forever. Oh. And
what's your favorite line from it? You have what?
Too many favorite lines.
Too many. Okay.
There's too many to talk about. I'll give you this real quick. So when I was in Japan, me and my buddy Chris, we'd go to other people's dorm rooms. We'd hang out or whatever. And I remember one time we left, and as we're walking out, I just turned around and I said, "Thanks. I really enjoyed being here." And him and I are dying laughing because that's what Tom Cruise says when he leaves Kelly McGillis' house. And we're dying laughing. Nobody knows what we're doing. Mm-hmm. Literally for the next year and a half in Japan, we lived there. Every time we left any place, one of us would go, "Thanks. Thank you. I really enjoyed being here." And then we would laugh, and people would look at us like we were morons. But it was great.
How did you feel about the most recent?
Really good.
You liked it? Okay.
Obviously, everybody.
You felt like it did justice.
It definitely did. It's a really good movie. Okay. So, well, before we reveal our number ones, let's head to the cut line. As we put our list together, we often find it very difficult to rank just 10 in each category. So for this segment, we will each identify 2 movies that just fell out of our top 10, and we'll also identify an honorable mention, which is a movie we didn't watch in 1986, or maybe shouldn't have been watching, like Rob was watching, and found it much later, but liked it, so it would have been worth thinking about putting on this list. So Rob, what are your 2 cuts?
Yeah, so shockingly, one of my cut lines is going to be an honorable mention as well, but I'm breaking the rules a little bit. So
you have 2 of the same movie?
No.
All
right. So my first cut line is a movie called Crossroads.
Wasn't that a Britney Spears movie?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. This is a Ralph Macchio movie.
Not the good one.
No, he's a guitar student, and he's trying to find. So there's for those that don't know, there's a blues legend. There was a blues artist named Robert Johnson. The legend has it that he met the devil at the crossroads, traded his soul to learn how to play the guitar. That's the legend. So Ralph Macchio is looking for this missing song. I can't remember the number, but he wrote 27 songs, and he's looking for the 29th song, or whatever. Mm-hmm. So he hunts down this blues legend that is now at a nursing home. He's under a different name. He helps him escape. They go down to the south, and they end up meeting at the crossroads, and they have a guitar duel with the devil and his cronies. And
so real quick, this song or this movie's plot is based on the song "The Devil Went Down to Georgia." Is that what we're talking about here?
It may be, but it starts Jamie Gertz, 16 Candles, The Last Boys. Has a 75% critics, 82% audience. I wrote a paper about the blues in college, did really well. Later in life,
real quick, Rob. Anytime you don't want people to think you're pretentious, go ahead and mention
writing
the grades that you got in college that were really good.
And it was a community college, so go figure.
Perfect.
Yeah. But no, I really got into blues later in life. There was a band that played at our community college. I ended up going out to, it was a little bar in Malala, Oregon.
Oh, yeah.
I drove out there just to watch them play. I've been in love with blues ever since, and so I really like the blues aspect of this. But also a little piece of Ralph Macchio he learned to play a lot of the guitar in this movie, but he was filming, I think it was Karate Kid 2 at the same time. So he was kind of, anyway. Yeah. So
well, I have not heard of and or seen that movie, so I will yield to you on that. But again, always a good thing to flex on people about your college grades.
Yes. So my community college grade.
Perfect.
And then the next one is one that I did not see, but I just recently watched it, and I thought it was really good. I should not have watched this as a kid, but it was Platoon.
Yeah.
Super good movie.
I didn't see that as a kid.
No, I just rewatched it here, to prepare for this, and super great acting.
Everybody knows Platoon. You don't have to.
Gosh, yeah. So what I didn't know is it was part of a trilogy, Vietnam War film trilogy that included Born on the 4th of July and one called Heaven and Earth that I couldn't pull that one up. It won, Oscar, took the Oscars. It's on the, American Film Institute's greatest 100 films. I mean, it's in the Library of Congress. But it has an 89% critics and a 93% audience. So, and I just think Berenger's acting in it was killer.
Yeah.
And it's a good movie.
Great
So,
movie. Didn't see that till much later
Yeah,
because
no, it was-
I didn't have a babysitter that just let us watch rated R
No,
films.
yeah,
so.
and I did not. Just to reiterate, this probably should have been an honorable mention because I did not watch it until like just a couple weeks ago.
Oh, man.
So it's really good.
All right. Well, my two cuts. First one, The Three Amigos, released 12 December 86. Rotten Tomatoes 45%, audience 67%. So the audience definitely likes this more. Steve Martin, Chevy Chase, Martin Short. So they are silent actors, but they're like can shoot guns well, and they're like I forget what that's called, but anyway, so they're good guys basically. Well, down in Mexico, they saw their movies, and they have this bad guy El Guapo, so they call them up to actually come in and defeat El Guapo. The three of them, the bumbling kind of morons that they are, they think they're just doing an acting gig. They get there and they actually have to shoot people, and in the end, they do defeat El Guapo with the people's help. And so I remember my parents or my dad really liked this. Obviously the three, I'm lukewarm always on Steve Martin, Chevy Chase, and Martin Short. So, but they had the famous where they go, "We are the three amigos," and then they hit their hips and turn to the side and like thrust or whatever. Yeah. So, I don't love it anymore, but going back thinking of 86, it would have been definitely a cut. The other one is The Money Pit, released 26 March 1986. 50% audience, 58% 58% audience, Rotten Tomatoes 50%, apologize. Tom Hanks and Shelley Long, basically they buy an expensive house, they want to fix it up. Kind of hilarity ensues. I remember I liked the physical comedy here where they're falling through holes, things are hitting them in the head. So as a 10-year-old, this is pushing all my kinds of buttons. Yeah. So the physical comedy was real good. But I don't think about it much now. It doesn't seem like one of those Tom Hanks rewatchable must movies. But I do remember watching it, and this was definitely a rental, but seeing it at the house. So... yeah, The Money Pit.
Those are two good cuts. I rewatched The Three Amigos to prepare, and I actually really liked it. I thought it was really good. I did. Our favorite line, because I watched it with my wife, was when he comes to the realization that it's all real, just the look on his face, and he comes back and says, "It's real. It's all real."
It always felt like a parents' movie to me, and I know there's funny. Maybe I just didn't understand all the comedy.
Yeah, it's subtle humor,
But it is what it is. Well. Even though you've already done it, why don't you do another honorable mention?
All right. So I will tell you, I just finished watching this today. I had another one in here, but Pretty in Pink. I had up until today, I'd never watched it.
Yeah.
So that might be one people. This is the one people are going to say.
Yeah, I don't know how.
How have you gone this
escaped
long?
You.
I've never seen
one of those must 80s movies.
Yeah.
You've got Breakfast Club.
Oh my gosh.
16 Candles, Pretty in Pink.
Oh,
I mean, these are like staples.
No, I had a killer, and I really liked it. I liked the story. I liked the movie. I mean, the characters really good. It was great writing.
The guy,
I really liked it.
The dude, the actor that plays her dad.
Yeah.
Harry reminds Dean Stanton. Me of your dad.
Yeah, Harry Dean Stanton.
He reminds me of your dad.
Yeah. He's in one of my favorite Christmas movies ever. He's a great actor. But yeah, Annie Potts, James Spader, Andrew McCarthy. There's even a Andrew Dice Clay cameo. Christy Swanson.
Did Andrew Dice Clay do one of his nursery rhymes during this movie?
No, he didn't. He didn't say anything.
No.
He just does his little lighter thing.
He shouldn't say it.
Anyway. But yeah, great soundtrack. When I was reading for it, it said it's considered one of the best soundtracks in cinema history.
Yeah.
It's right up
great.
there. So, no, I loved it. It was a great movie. Yeah.
Can't believe you hadn't seen it.
No, I had not.
Well, I'm starting to believe you haven't seen it because... you're watching Cobra, but you're missing Pretty in Pink. Your 80s. Yes. Sometimes your 80s was strange compared to other 80s kids.
That is a whole discussion for another time.
Well, my honorable mention is Back to School, released 13 June 1986.
Rodney Dangerfield.
Rotten Tomatoes 86%, audience 68%. Rodney Dangerfield and a young Robert Downey Jr. by the way.
Oh.
And the person who played it's William Zubak, or I forget his name, but he played Johnny Lawrence in Karate Kid. So he's the bad guy in this. But I didn't see this until the 1990s. I rented it in Japan on base and loved it. I thought it was hilarious. Basic plot: Rodney Dangerfield's kid's going to college. He's not doing well. He's a swimmer. So Rodney Dangerfield goes to college because he never went to college, but he's made himself a multimillionaire. And then he goes to class and he tries to pick up girls, and he has this huge dorm room, and it's funny. Like, it's really funny. I watched it today. It's still funny. Now, when I was younger, I still thought Sam Kinnison's in this, and he's a history teacher, and he was always my favorite part. A few things, he he says a few things now that are definitely culturally insensitive, and well, they're just flat out offensive, actually. But it's still funny at the time. I don't know if it's still funny now for most people. I'm not being a cancel guy, but he definitely says some insensitive racial remarks. But I can see why people wouldn't find it funny anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But I still found it funny just because I don't know the way he yelled, and him and Rodney Dangerfield have an exchange. But most famously known for, of course, at the end, he does the triple Lindy.
I don't know.
Have you seen this movie?
No.
Absolutely insane. Your face right now is upsetting me so much. I can't believe you haven't seen Back to School. So I'm going to stop talking about it because
No,
I'm just upset. No,
I want to watch.
I'm not spoiling it anymore. Again, these things. So you picked The Boy Who Could Fly, but you haven't watched Back to School. So you have a task this weekend to go watch Back to School because this is insane. So, well, you know what? Since I'm done with that honorable mention, you've ruined the whole thing. Let's just go to your number one.
My number one has already been mentioned is Hoosiers.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's probably one of my favorite movies. I will watch it every time.
I still love I'll Make It. Always.
Yes. No, my wife hadn't seen it actually, and so she sat down and watched it. And I mean, for some reason, and this sounds really dumb. The relationship between the coach and the drunk coach.
Yeah.
That whole relationship just gets me every time, and it hits me in the feels. I don't know why, but especially I watched it this time, and when he gets himself purposely kicked out of the game, he goes to the ref and he says, "Kick me out, kick me out of the game. If you don't kick me out of the game right now, I'm going to scream like a madman." Kicks me out of the game. So he goes, "Well, I did it again," and he hands it off to the coach, and then forces him to get in. And so. Love this movie.
Yeah.
Another part that I really like is when they go to the finals and they're in the big gym and they all walk in and he gives the kid the tape measure to show that it's still 10 feet. It's 10 feet, just like back at home.
Just
and so
like back home.
But no, I could watch this movie a million times, and I like the period piece. I like the music. I like the old gyms. It's killer.
Yeah.
Love this movie.
Fantastic movie. Yeah. I was fearing. Because you said you rewatched Three Amigos. I had this fear Three Amigos was going to be number one, but that's fine. I'm very happy that it's not. Hoosiers is good.
No.
Well, when we started this podcast, I said my over-under was 3, right?
Yeah.
So Iron Eagle we both had. Hoosiers we both had.
Oh,
and my number one, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, right? So released 11 June 1986. Rotten Tomatoes 81%, audience 92%. Matthew Broderick, Jennifer Grey, a young Charlie Sheen. We all know it. We love it. It's one of those standard viewing 80s movies. I won't go too far into it because like Top Gun, this is going to be a standalone episode, as I said earlier. This movie was also selected for the film registry because it's culturally historical. I will say, and the only thing we're going to talk about here before I close off this is if I could come back in another life, I would love to be Abe Froman, the Sausage King of Chicago. King. I just feel like there's a lot of power and prestige that goes with that title of being the Sausage King of Chicago. I feel like girls would just throw themselves at you. You'd be a titan of industry, just because of your sausageness. All right.
No.
So if anyone out there is wondering what it is to be famous and powerful, it's the sausageness that Abe Froman would have for being the Sausage King of Chicago. So if I could come back, I would love to be the Sausage King. So, but yeah, Ferris Bueller's can't go wrong with that. And so. Over under was 3. We had 3 movies that were the same.
Good call.
So yeah, I'm smart.
Yeah,
people don't know that about me, but I am quite intelligent.
People,
I don't use big words like heady
or pretentious,
and I don't tell people my grades from college. Apparently, you walk around with a degree under your arm. I'm not sure what's going on there, but so those are our lists.
It was community college.
I do want to note a terrible movie. Now you mentioned earlier. A couple of movies.
One that's in our that we already mentioned?
No.
Oh.
You mentioned a couple movies where there was some racial insensitivity, some shading of actors and stuff. There was a movie in 1986. It was called Soul Man.
Oh, yes, that came up when I was reading.
Horrific movie, and it's really bad. So C. Thomas Howell is a rich white kid who gets into Harvard Law, but his dad won't pay for it. So he colors himself black to get a scholarship, and then he gets into school thinking he's black. It is awful. And I don't know how in 1986 that happened, and everybody just stood around and went, and there are some prominent actors in that movie, like really good actors, and everybody was just fine with it, apparently.
I'd be curious to know what he thinks about that now.
I don't know. But on top of the fact, it's just a bad movie.
Yeah.
It's not good. So
Well, let me ask you about a movie that was on my cutting room floor. It was Labyrinth.
yeah, so I had that on my cutting room floor too.
I tried to rewatch it. I couldn't.
It's
I
rough.
didn't even make it through.
So when I was a kid, I remember the
but my
puppets.
sister loves it.
Yeah. When I was a kid, I remember the puppets, and it's like the fantasy element. I really like the never-ending story, so I thought Labyrinth would be something like that, but it wasn't the same.
No.
I had some more cuts. A couple you said, obviously Stand By Me, Platoon, Heartbreak Ridge. I saw that later with Clint Eastwood. The Color of Money I saw much later, a Tom Cruise movie. My wife loves Peggy Sue Got Married.
Yep, also on my list.
Wildcats, fantastic. Goldie Hawn.
No, I didn't put that
she's
one
a
down.
high school football coach. Yeah, so I had lots of movies, but most of those I didn't see till later, which is why they ended up on the cutting room floor. But I did not have, so I was really glad you brought it up. I just didn't have The Boy Who Could Fly anywhere. So I looked, and it just didn't show up. But I'm so happy that you brought it to the forefront.
Also on my cutting room, Raw Deal.
Yeah.
Schwarzenegger. American Tail. Police Academy 3. I
Police
wasn't
Academy
I
3.
wasn't a big Police Academy
So,
person, so
I'm going to tell you right now, Police Academy 3, for a while, I had in almost the top 10. I mean, Gutenberg's fantastic. It's got Bobcat Goldthwait in it with the crazy voice where he talks. Yeah, anyway, it's awful. And then Michael Winslow, he's the voices guy. But yeah, I liked the Police Academies when I was a kid because, again, it's slapstick humor, but it probably didn't age well.
That's right. What about Space Camp?
No,
Didn't
didn't
do
watch
that
it.
one?
Don't
Okay.
see it.
All right.
I had no interest in Space Camp, so I wouldn't have watched the movie.
What about Legend, the Tom Cruise flick?
Yeah, no.
No, see,
That was another one I didn't watch and didn't have a lot of interest in.
Nope.
So there were actually a lot of good movies. I thought American Tail would make
It's on my cutting room floor.
You love the song so much. I figured you'd get in on that movie. We had no cartoons.
No cartoon.
Another one that was a cartoon I almost had, Transformers the movie. I remember being excited to see that, and then it wasn't as good as I thought. And they killed Optimus Prime, which just upset me to no end. All right, so. Well, I think if you want to go back and find some good movies in 1986, we gave you some examples. I think if you want to find some other movies, Rob gave you some examples. And then if you want to just be a complete crazy person, having not seen Back to School, you could also be Rob for this podcast. So that brings us to the end of this most excellent episode of Totally 80s and 90s Recall. We hope you've enjoyed a look back at our favorite movies of 1986. If you like this podcast, please hit that subscribe button and share it with a friend, and head on over to Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts and leave us feedback, 5 stars. That's just going to help the show grow. For our lists, what did we get right or wrong? Or did we miss something altogether? Which I'm more than confident we did. Leave us a message on Instagram, Twitter, or our website, which are all included in the show notes. You can also email us at 80s90srecall@gmail.com with comments or show ideas you may want to hear in the future, and we will make you famous and read those emails in future episodes.
So, where are we going next? What's our homework for next time?
Well, next time we are going to be doing a St. Patrick's Day special, our first one.
Okay.
And it's going to be songs about drinking/partying from the 80s and 90s.
Okay.
These could be songs you like to hear while drinking. They could be songs about drinking. They could contain lyrics or a message that you attribute to partying, having fun with friends, whatever you want to do. But yeah, we're going to do that for St. Patrick's Day and hopefully come up with some... I'm sure you'll throw us a couple curveballs, but we'll come up with something good.
That should be interesting.
It's always interesting. Always. Never dull.
Never a dull moment.
Well, you got anything else?
I don't.
All right. Fancy goodbye.
No fancy goodbye?
No fancy goodbye.
All right, peace out.